أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Today's summary will cover the 7th juz, which concludes Surah Ma'idah and then moves on to Surah An'am. Surah Ma'idah, as we know, is a Madini surah, which has many ahkamat, which we covered yesterday. Moving on today, the first hukum is regarding oaths. لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم ولكن يؤاخذكم بما عقدتم الأيمان. Allah will not hold you accountable for باللغو في أيمانكم, for the oaths which are taken unintentionally. Law oaths. There's something that happened and you thought you saw it that way and you've taken an oath. So those are, it should be avoided, but if such oaths are taken, then you will not be held accountable. وَلَكِنْ يُؤَاخِذُكُمْ, but this is if you are not deliberately. If you are lying about something deliberately and taking an oath, then that is yamin ghamus, and that will be mentioned later on. But if it's unintentionally, then you won't be held accountable. وَلَكِنْ يُؤَاخِذُكُمْ بِمَا عَقَّدْتُمُ الْأَيْمَانِ, but you will be held accountable for the deliberate oaths, or the oaths which you would take it for future things, that you will do something or you won't do something or such. So then if such oaths are broken, then there's an expiation, there's a kafara. فَكَفَارَتُهُ إِطْعَامُ عَشَرَةِ مَسَاكِينَ مِنْ أَوْسَطِ مَا تُطْعِمُونَ أَهْلِيكُمْ أَوْ كِسْوَتُهُمْ أَوْ تَحْرِيرُ رَقَبَةٍ. The kafara for that is either feeding 10 people, clothing 10 people, or freeing a slave. It needs to be one of these three. If you can't do any of these three, okay, freeing a slave nowadays, you wouldn't find a slave, but the other two, feeding 10 people or clothing 10 people, everyone can do. Most people can do. If you can't do one of these three, then فَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ فَصِيَامُ ثَلَاثِ أَيَّامٍ. If you can't, then you can fast for 3 days as the expiation. But that's not the first option. Many people think that, okay, if I break my oath, I'm just going to fast for 3 days and that will expiate. That is not enough. But Allah then further in that verse advises that وَحْفَظُوا أَيْمَانَكُمْ, but protect your oaths. And protect your oaths, we shouldn't be breaking our oaths. Once we take an oath, we should fulfill it. We should be people who stick to our word. Then verse number 90 mentions the prohibition of alcohol, of khamr, and along with other things, gambling and other things I've mentioned over here. As mentioned earlier, the prohibition of alcohol came in 3 stages. First was advisory, وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا, the sin is greater than the benefits. And second was not to go close in salah, لَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَنْتُمْ سُكَارَى, don't go close to salah while you are drunk. And then now Allah mentions, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِنَّمَا الْخَمْرُ وَالْمَيْسِرُ وَالْأَنْصَابُ وَالْأَزْلَامُ رِجْسٌ مِّنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, so stay away from it. These things have been mentioned, the khamr, alcohol, gambling and other things. We should look at the translation and get a wider understanding. And then verse number 101 mentions how we shouldn't ask unnecessary questions. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَسْأَلُوا عَنْ أَشْيَاءَ إِن تُبْدَ لَكُمْ تَسُؤْكُمْ. Don't, O believers, don't ask about things that if they were made apparent to you, then you would dislike it. وَإِن تَسْأَلُوا عَنْهَا حِينَ يُنَزَّلُ الْقُرْآنُ تُبْدَ لَكُمْ. And if you ask them while the Qur'an is being revealed, then they will be disclosed to you. So and then it will become a burden. So don't ask unnecessary questions. In other words, like the Bani Israel with the cow, if they just slaughtered the cow, it would have been easy, any cow. But they asked what color it should be, how it should be, and then the matter became difficult on themselves. So don't make matters like that of the cow of Bani Israel, and do as you're told. You may ask basic questions of understanding, but unnecessary questions should be avoided in matters of deen. And then in the next section, verse number 109 mentions how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will gather the prophets and ask them as well, يَوْمَ يَجْمَعُ اللَّهُ الرُّسُلَ فَيَقُولُ مَاذَا أُجِبْتُمْ. The day when Allah will gather the Rasul, the prophets, and He will ask them, what response did you receive? قَالُوا لَا عِلْمَ لَنَا. They will say, we do not know. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ عَلَّامُ الْغُيُوبِ. You are the knower of the unseen. So that's been mentioned over here. And the last portion of the Surah Ma'idah, reverts back to Isa alayhi salam and his story. قال عيسى بن مريم اللهم ربنا أنزل علينا مائدة من السماء. This is after a request from his followers that Allah should send down a table spread, a ma'idah from the heavens. And then Isa alayhi salam prayed for it and they were blessed with this. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did mention that if you فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بَعْدُ مِنْكُمْ فَإِنِّي أُعَذِّبُهُ عَذَابًا لَا أُعَذِّبُهُ أَحَدًا مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. If you disobey after this, then you'll be punished. Such a punishment would not have been given to anyone in the world. وإذ قال الله يا عيسى ابن مريم أأنت قلت للناس اتخذوني وأمي إلهين من دون الله قال سبحانك ما يكون لي أن أقول ما ليس لي بحق إن كنت قلته فقد علمته. So this portion mentions, the last ruku mentions how Allah will ask Isa alayhi salam on the day of judgment, did you tell the people to be worshipped other than Allah? And he will say, of course, he will deny this, of course not. How can he say something which he does not have the right to say? And if he says that in kuntu qultuhu faqad alimta, if I was to say, you would have known. And this has been mentioned over here. Just lastly, I would like to mention verse number 118, Isa alayhi salam's dua, in tu'adhibhum fa innahum ibaduk wa in taghfir lahum fa innaka antal azizul hakim. If you punish them, then they are your slaves, and if you forgive them, then you are mighty and wise. And this is a verse which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would recite, in tu'adhibhum fa innahum ibaduk, and pray, in tu'adhibhum, if you punish them, then they are your slaves, wa in taghfir lahum, and if you forgive them, fa innaka antal azizul hakim, you are the mighty, the wise. So this concludes Surah Ma'idah. We move on to Surah An'am, which is the 6th surah of the Qur'an. It's a Makki surah, only 55 verses. So many Medinan surahs previously, and now we move on to a Makkan surah. The theme of the Medinan surahs, it has many ahkamat and rulings, and the theme of the Makkan surahs, which were revealed before Hijrah, before migration, is that of Tawheed, Risala and Akhirah. Oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Risala, prophethood, and Akhirah, the next life, life after death. So that is the theme. And you could say Surah An'am primarily has two themes. One is of reflection, and the other one is removing the corrupt beliefs and responding to them in a particular fashion. You will see many places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam by saying, "Qul," say and tell the people such and such. "Qul siru fil ardi thumma anzuru kayfa kana aqiba. قل أرأيتم إن أخذ الله سمعكم وأبصاركم قل لا أقول لكم عندي خزائن." So this is a pattern in this surah, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned this. And this surah is very comprehensive, especially for those people, for the du'at, those people who do the work of da'wah, who call others to Islam, and those who are interested in Islam, they should be advised to read this surah, Surah An'am, very important surah. So let's have a look into it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts off by the praise, Alhamdulillah alladhi khalaqa as-samawati wal arda wa ja'ala dhulumati wan nur. Allah starts off the surah with his praise. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is consoled, وَلَقَدْ اسْتُهْزِئَ بِرُسُلٍ مِّن قَبْلِكَ, that previously prophets have been mocked as well. So there's some solace in this. It lightens the burden to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in verse number 11 tells us to spread through the earth. قُلْ سِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, go out through the earth. ثُمَّ انظُرُوا كَيْفَ كَانَ عَاقِبَةُ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ, and see what was the result, the end of the deniers. So those people who denied, how they ended up, the punishment that they received. Go to such places and see them as ibrah, as a lesson. Not just there, don't just go there for entertainment, but this should be a lesson for us to learn. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned many facts in this surah, and proving the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, introduction to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Verse number 32 mentions وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَعِبٌ وَلَهْوٌ. The worldly life is nothing but play and pastime. وَلَلدَّارُ الْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ. And the life of the akhirah is better for those who have taqwa. فَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. Do you not understand? Then verse number 46 mentions قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ سَمْعَكُمْ وَأَبْصَارَكُمْ وَخَتَمَ عَلَى قُلُوبِكُمْ مَنْ إِلَهٌ غَيْرُ اللَّهِ يَأْتِيكُمْ بِهِ. That say, tell them, قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ سَمْعَكُمْ, if Allah was to take your hearing and your eyes, and He was to seal your hearts, which ilah, which God other than Allah would bring it for you? قُلْ لَا أَقُولُ لَكُمْ عِنْدِي خَزَائِنُ اللَّهِ وَلَا أَعْلَمُ الْغَيْبِ. Tell the people, say, the لَا أَقُولُ لَكُمْ, I do not say to you, عِنْدِي خَزَائِنُ اللَّهِ, that I have the treasures of Allah, وَلَا أَعْلَمُ الْغَيْبِ, and I do not know the unseen, وَلَا أَقُولُ لَكُمْ إِنِّي مَلَكٌ, and I do not say to you that I am an angel. وَعِنْدَهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ. Verse number 59 mentions, beautiful verse, وَعِنْدَهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ, and Allah has the keys to the unseen. لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا هُ, no one knows them except for Him. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. Allah knows what is in the land and the ocean. وَمَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا وَلَا حَبَّةٍ فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْأَرْضِ وَلَا رَطْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. And a leaf doesn't fall, but Allah knows it. وَلَا حَبَّةٍ, and neither as a grain, a seed in the darkness of the earth. وَلَا رَطْبٍ وَلَا يَابِسٍ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. Everything is in an open book. So these are beautiful verses throughout this surah. Again, we are just going by as mentioning some of the verses as highlights. We need to read upon the translation of this whole surah, the whole Qur'an, and understand the beauty of the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ponder on these ayat. And then in the last portion, last quarter of this juz, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And this is the incident, the story of how he looked at the star. رَأَى كَوْكَبًا قَالَ هَذَا رَبِّي. He looked at the star and he said, this is my Rabb. But then when he went away, it can't be the Rabb. فَلَمَّا رَأَى الْقَمَرَ. Then he looked at the moon and he said, this is my Rabb. But then when that went away, this can't be the Rabb. فَلَمَّا رَأَى الشَّمْسَ. Then he looked at the sun and قَالَ هَذَا رَبِّي هَذَا أَكْبَرُ. This is my Rabb, this is the greatest. So this was, you could say, a theological exercise by Ibrahim alayhi salam. He believed in the oneness, of course, but as a question, that can this be my Rabb? Can the stars or the moon or the sun? But no, when they would go away, فَلَمَّا أَفَلَتْ, when the sun went away, فَلَمَّا أَفَلَتْ قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ إِنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّمَّا تُشْرِكُونَ. I am innocent from what you ascribe, the partners you ascribe. And then in the next ruku, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions many prophets. وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ إِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ كُلًّا هَدَيْنَا وَنُوحًا هَدَيْنَا مِنْ قَبْلُ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِهِ دَاوُودَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ وَأَيُّوبَ وَيُوسُفَ وَمُوسَى وَهَارُونَ. And next verse mentions وَزَكَرِيَّا وَيَحْيَى وَعِيسَى وَإِلْيَاسَ. And further وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ وَالْيَسَعَ وَيُونُسَ وَلُوطَ. 17 prophets have been mentioned over here. I think this is the place where the most prophets have been mentioned. One place in the Qur'an, total of 25 prophets have been mentioned. So 17 of them have been mentioned over here, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed Ibrahim alayhi salam's progeny. And the last portion again mentions a lot of the marvels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna Allah faliqul habbi wal nawa. The way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala splits and the stem comes out and it grows to be a big tree. This is فالق الإصباح. All these things have been explained over here. وهو الذي أنشأكم من نفس واحدة. He is the one who has created you from one soul. وهو الذي أنزل من السماء ماء. He is the one who sends down the rain from the heavens, from the skies. So this has, all these marvels have been mentioned. We should read upon the translation and get a wider understanding. So this concludes the 7th juz. Inshallah, we'll continue with Surah An'am into the 8th juz tomorrow. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a true understanding of the Quran and the Hadith, and may Allah give us the ability to implement the Quran and Sunnah into our lives, and also give us the ability to propagate this to others. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.